Coming up on the Empowered Woman podcast.
There's no such thing as failure, only feedback. So I really took that on as that's a very powerful belief system to have. I want to have that belief system. That's my new belief. And it's been serving me so well ever since then.
Welcome to the Empowered Woman podcast, the #1 show on personal growth, visibility, and profit for women entrepreneurs. If you're wanting to get empowered to be seen, stand out on social media, stages, TV, and more to make an impact with your voice in business, you're in the right place. I am so glad that you're here. My name is Marta Spurk, and I'm your host, empowerment coach, visibility and marketing expert, and all things motivation extraordinaire. Welcome again, and let's dive into today's episode. Hi, Kathryn. Thank you so much for joining me today.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, of course. Well, I have a few things to say before we get started. First of all, I just saw you were on Jasmine Star's podcast with Lori Harder. And now to come on my podcast, it's like, what is happening? But this is what we get to do. We get to break barriers and have amazing people on their shows if we decide.
And I heard you manifested this, and I can't wait to hear all your steps.
I know.
You need to record a whole podcast step by step.
I will. So for those of you who don't know, I've mentioned this on the show before, but if you weren't paying attention on previous episodes, once I finished Manifestation Babe Academy's of my first round, as I was, thinking the praises, talking about everything, I said, and you just wait, I will have Kathryn on the podcast. And the day has come.
We are here.
So, yes, super excited. Well, for the people that are living under a rock, tell us who you are and what you do, and we'll jump right in.
Yeah, very simply put. So my name is KATHRIN ZENKINA, and I am a manifestation coach, and I've been teaching on the topic of manifestation for much longer than my company, Manifestation Babe, has existed. I've been obsessed with the world of spirituality, universal laws, the power of the mind since I was 16 years old, when it personally changed my life. And I've been just sharing all my wisdom, all my lessons that I've learned, all the steps that I've taken to get to where I am today, building Manifestation Babe into what it is today, and all the amazing stuff that I've manifested. And over time, it's just continued to grow, and I can't seem to get tired of it, get sick of it, shut up about it, and we just keep going.
That's amazing. And I remember, it's been fun for me to watch the evolution, because I started following you at around the time when you launched your podcast in 2018.
No way.
Yeah. And
no way.
I remember
the
moment where you remember what you were doing when something happened. So I remember getting clothes out of the washing machine and putting them in the dryer, listening to the podcast. And it was one of the first episodes where you were talking about the steps to manifest. And it's like, that's the one that everyone wants to listen to whenever you send out the email. Here are the steps. And it's like, oh my gosh, let me see. And it's actually super simple.
It really is.
So I'd love for you to share with us.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh, I love this question. And I love that you shared it's so simple, because I feel like this is what sometimes prevents people from listening or taking the steps, is because they're like, nah, it can't be that simple, right? And I feel like that really gets in our own way. And if you just accept the simplicity of it, and if you just allow yourself to believe that it could be that simple, I feel like you're going to go light years ahead of where you are today and truly create your dream life. So my manifestation process, it's funny because the actual steps of how I teach it have evolved, even though it's not like manifestation has evolved. It's not like I'm doing anything differently, but my way of explaining things, I'm very much a big picture, very big vision oriented person. And sometimes I even forget, I'm like, wait, I forgot that I took that step. Like you were talking about how I was on Jasmine Star's podcast that was being co-hosted with Lori Harder at the time, and they were asking me for very detailed step-by-steps of exactly what I did when I lived on my grandma's couch. And in the moment, being put on the spot like that, I was able to share some things, but my mind really went blank. And I'm like, oh my God, I did that audience such a disservice. And so I have a plan now on my podcast to kind of share that story of no, there were lots of steps. And I finally, they started to flood in where I'm like, oh my God, I remember meditating every morning, every night, having specific visualizations. I remember saying specific mantras. I had a very specific routine that I would do when I would walk into work every single morning, because I also worked a 9 to 5 at the time that I was building, basically transitioning from one business into another, realizing that manifestation is what I really want to teach and what I really want to talk about. And it's not the fitness business that I had. And so it's really interesting because like I really need to be asked good questions to get into the details and be like, oh, this is how it is. And sometimes I'll sit down and I'll ask myself questions. So I've realized that over the last couple weeks, like this is it. This is my 6-step manifestation process. I'd love to share it. Number one is for everybody. And the sad reality of the truth is that very few people even get to step one, which blows my mind, Marta. The fact that very few people even get to step one. It's like, of course, you know, there's so many unfulfilled, unhappy people in life, and they don't realize that they really do get to have it all if they even just taking the first step can make a huge difference in someone's life, which the first step is to get clear on what you want and how you want it to feel. What is it that you want? And this can be anything. This can be anything from money to a specific car, to a relationship, to donating a certain amount of money to a cause or foundation you care about, to world peace. I mean, anything that you can conceptualize and think of course, like things like world peace, you know, we all want it, but we all have to join in on that intention as a collective. Unfortunately, it's going to take all of us on that intention, but you know, just let's go to like personal life. You know, what is it that you want? And specifically, how do you want it to feel? And I like to ask this question because there's 2 types of manifestors in the system of human design, which I know a lot of people are familiar with nowadays. If not, it's a system like astrology. It's based on astrology. It's based on the I Ching. It's based on the Kabbalah tree of life. It's based on, I'm missing one more. There's one more system that was downloaded, combining all these systems together, which just shows you basically like who you are and who you're meant to be. And according to the human design belief, there's 2 types of manifestors. And I've seen this true from teaching thousands of students, which there's a specific manifestor and a non-specific manifestor. And a lot of teachers who are manifestation teachers, they are either one or the other, and how they teach impacts like the information that they share. And very often I see a lot of people, a lot of manifestation teachers where they will go, you know, you have to be ultra specific. Like you need to know exactly what the house looks like, exactly what the car looks like, know the model, know the year, know the amount of doors, know what the door handles look like. And for me, that never worked. That stressed me out so much because I'm like, I don't know what I want it to look like, but I do know how I want it to feel, right? So for a specific manifestor, it's getting down to the nitty-gritty details because you're meant to have exactly what it is that you want. And for a non-specific manifestor like me, I really tap into the feelings of how I want it to feel. So I know that my dream home, I can get a good amount of generic general details, but then I really can zone in on how it feels. And the house that I just recently manifested in Scottsdale, I mean, it feels exactly like that. And I allow the universe to then fill in all the details, and the universe, or infinite intelligence, it's called infinite intelligence for that reason, because it can really fill in all the details based off of all the vibrational outputs that you've put out over time. So meaning anytime you've ever looked on the internet and you've scrolled past a house where you're like, "Ooh, I like this house," or you've opened or you walked in a grocery store down the aisle and there's like interior design magazines, and you just seem to you looked at the cover of one and you go, "Ooh, I like that too," right? So infinite intelligence remembers all those moments and then comes together once you get specific on your feelings that you want to feel to fill in all the details. So that's step 1. Step 2 is to see it and feel it as already yours. Now, how you do that, first of all, mind cannot tell the difference between what is real and what is imagined. So what is so cool about the subconscious or unconscious, or we can just call it mind, is that it doesn't know the difference between what's real and what's imagined. And it doesn't know the difference between, like, it doesn't know what past or future is. It only knows present moment. So when you imagine something, it's as real to the mind as actually experiencing in real life. And this is a potent part of the process, because when you envision what you want, when you feel what you want, when you tap into all the senses, when you see yourself as part of the equation, which is a massive deal. I think that this is another thing that so few people do. They don't see themselves as part of the equation. When I do my mental rehearsals, or I do my visualizations, or I feel into the vision or feel into the desire that I'm creating, I am seeing it on me. I'm seeing my body as part of it. I am not just envisioning my dream car, like kind of driving by me as I see it, I'm seeing myself sitting in the dream car. I am, if you want to, manifest a vacation, don't just see, like to Italy, for example, don't just see generic Italy, but see yourself eating the pizza, see yourself walking down those beautiful narrow alleyways, like involve yourself as much as you possibly can in the process. And bringing in as many senses as possible is what's going to help you just color that vision. Now, step 3, the next step, okay, we have our vision. We can see it and feel it as already ours. The next step is, this is where limiting beliefs come up. This is where mind kind of our survival mind, our ego, whatever you want to call it, just comes in and goes, I don't know if that's possible. Are you sure? Or belief systems that come in from our parents or society or our culture or friends or whomever, where, we hear this voice of like, I don't know if that's possible. I don't think that can work. Who are you to have that? You're not enough for that, blah, 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 blah. So it's really crucial at this point that we clear this. And I often find that when we clear the limiting beliefs, our vision actually gets bigger. And so sometimes we might go back to step 1 and be like, okay, now that there is no limitation, what is it that I really, really want? So here is where, coaching comes in. Like I hire coaches all the time. It's the best investment that I make. Like if there's one secret superpower above any investment that I make, any traditional investment, like in real estate or investing in a business or investing in the stock market, like I think the most powerful investment that creates limitless amounts of money in all other investments in all other realms is coaching. Because when I struggle with a limiting belief or when I have a blind spot that I just cannot get past, or I feel some sort of heaviness or resistance, I just don't wait. I don't wait. I just immediately call my coach or I text my coach or voice note my coach and I'm like, you need to help me see this differently. And it's like 3 seconds, reframe over it. Let's move on. And it's just so powerful. So any modality around like belief change modalities, nervous system regulation comes in here, therapy, tools, whatever it is that resonates with you, whatever it is that works for you, is where you want to use those tools. I personally love rapid resolution therapy. I love breath work. I love EFT, which is also known as tapping, or emotional, Emotional freedom technique is tapping. Yes. Hypnosis. There's a new modality that I took during my sabbatical this summer, Psych K, or just like good old visualization, because again, mind can't tell the difference between what's real or imagined. So if you see yourself past the belief, like let's say you have a fear of, just a random example, skydiving, but you mentally rehearse, like you see yourself skydiving, even in spite of having that belief, eventually your subconscious is going to be like, that's interesting. I guess we don't really have that fear because I see myself over and over and over again skydiving or speaking on stage or buying a new home or whatever it is. Inside of Manifestation Babe Academy, I created the limiting belief blaster. So that's a powerful tool that you would use here. And then, for anyone who just needs some actionable tips on like, how do I knock down those limiting beliefs? I really love to practice what I call poking holes at the limiting beliefs, like really questioning it. And I think that when we ask really good questions, we get really good answers, and those answers can absolutely transform our life. So asking things like, is this absolutely true? Can I find evidence of it not being true? Could I find evidence of someone else living this reality and seeing that, why does this belief have to apply only to me, but it doesn't apply to them? Like something here doesn't make sense. And the more you confuse the limiting belief, the less it stands as something that's valid, right? I love asking a powerful question because, I'm obviously very spiritual. So I have a strong connection to the universe, to God, higher self. I believe in all of it. So creator, supreme divine intelligence. And I often think like, what would divine intelligence tell me about this limiting belief, right? Or if I were looking at my son and my son came up to me and said, Mom, I don't believe that this is possible for me. Like, what would I tell him? Of course, all of a sudden, it's like the biggest lie that I've ever heard. It's like, no, Orion, of course it's possible for you. And it's like, huh, why do I see it that way for myself? And then you start to realize, oh no, these are just patterns. These are just thoughts. These are just beliefs that have been passed down the generations, right? Generational beliefs or just experiences that I had as a child. That doesn't necessarily mean this is 100% true. And then once you've cleared that, step 4 is to, and this is very powerful for the subconscious mind, is to collect evidence of it already being in motion. So when people talk about synchronicities, like for example, let's say you've been thinking about, I don't know, starting a business. And then you walk into a coffee shop the next day, and while you're waiting in line, the person in line behind you is talking about starting a business, or they're talking about specifically the business that you want to start. Or let's say you want to become an interior designer, and all of a sudden you go to a party and you meet someone else who's a very successful interior designer, and they're like, oh, I can teach you the ropes, right? Like those little things, synchronicities that when collected become evidence that the manifestation is already in motion. Finding expanders who already have it. I love doing this because sometimes I'm like, sometimes it's hard to imagine something being possible for you just because you've never done it before. But if you surround yourself with enough people who also have that manifestation, all of a sudden it's like, oh, okay, well, just even logically thinking here, I can just simply learn from them and ask them how they made it possible for them, right? And I don't have to be left in the dark. Like this is an example, this is a possibility for me. This is proof that it exists. And so the more you can prove to your mind that the manifestation not only exists, but it's already in motion, it's already in progress for you, it's like it just starts to grow stronger and stronger and stronger. And then step number 5 is to act like you've already manifested. So when I embody the version of myself who's already manifested this desire, this is where this step is. And this is like a continuous process. Sometimes these steps, it's like, yeah, you go from step 1 to 6, but also you're kind of like a living embodiment of the steps all at once at the same time. So this is a powerful way to reprogram your mind, which is to act as if, and it's because action is the final step to building new neural networks permanently. So it's like the cement of the neural networks when you take action. And action is key because if you think about it, your desires in the manifestation process as you're going through it are in the ethers. They're in the non-physical. And what you're doing is you're bringing them into the physical. Well, so far in the steps, we're taking mental action, we're taking spiritual action, we're taking emotional action, right? We're doing reframing, we're feeling, right? We're seeing, we're believing all these things. But then what's left is if you want to bring a desire into the physical, you need to take physical action. So here is where I'll literally ask myself, who is the version of Kathryn who already has her desire? And how can I show up as her? How can I make decisions as her? How can I take risks like her? So anytime I'm afraid and I'm like, I don't know, Brennan, like this feels like a really big risk. And it's like immediately I'm like, okay, if I don't take this risk, am I embodying the version of myself who already has that success or already has that business or that desire? Clearly not. So if I don't take action here, I'm literally stopping the manifestation process in its tracks. And so in order for me to get what I want, I have to act as if I already have it. Now, this doesn't mean in this step, oftentimes people mistake this as, oh, Kathryn, I want to have a private jet. Does this mean I go out and just buy a private jet, even though I don't have the money for it? No, this is not where that comes in, because when we approach, manifestation from, or just like when we approach it from that sense, we actually end up putting ourselves in a worse off position, and it actually lowers our frequency. So I don't recommend going out and just blowing a bunch of money or just saying, oh, the money's going to come back anyway, I'm just going to go into debt, it's going to figure itself out. Like, no, I promise you, the version of you who's created that success or had that desire didn't do that to get there. So you have to be really, really creative. And by creative, it's like asking yourself, in the process of manifesting it, what did the version of me who already has it do to get there? And sometimes we have to approach it in stepping stones. Like, okay, let's forget the private jet for now. Like, what are some of the stepping stones on the way to the private jet? And how can I take action on these little stepping stones, right? And then number 6 is where you follow your intuition. Okay, my Zoom has been doing really weird things where I get fireworks and balloons, and
Likes
sometimes,
what
you
you're
know what?
saying.
It
So
likes what I'm saying, so we're just gonna go with it. It's a cosign from the universe for me. So the last step, step 6, is where, as you're following these steps, your intuition is gonna just start working for you, where you're going to start getting really called to do something, really called to say something, to ask something, to create something, to start something, to just like your intuition is just it's just going to nudge you and pull on you and call on you to do something different or take a different route to work or start a business or start a website or this or that is related to your manifestation. And sometimes it's not even obvious that it's related to your manifestation, because it could say, like, for example, you get invited to a party and you're like, I don't know, I don't really like parties, but for whatever reason, your intuition's like, no, you need to go to this party, and you don't know why. And all of a sudden you go to that party and you meet someone who becomes your life partner, or you meet someone who becomes your business partner, right? So really trusting in your intuition is key here. And then once you get that intuition, once you get that nudge, once you get that pull, taking action on it, because the only way that the desire gets actualized into physical reality again is that physical action. So those are the steps, Marta.
oh my gosh. Thank you so much for taking the time to walk through all of them in detail instead of just being like, here it is, which I know that's not what you're about, but I just want to express
No,
gratitude
we go deep. We always go deep.
for taking the time to go through all of it. And one of the things that I said I did want to touch on before we started recording, which is part of the steps, is that taking action. Because like you said, a lot of it, the first half of it or a little bit more, is the concept, right? You need to figure out what you want, but action is a very important part of the process. And one of the things that I remember you saying in MBA at whatever point it was, is that it's interesting to look back and be like, that was the thing that I did that led to this. But at the time when I did it, I had no idea, but I just went with it, which is what you
Yes.
just explained, which is so cool to look back and see how that trust in the process is monumental. It's part of it. You have to trust yourself,
Yeah.
trust the process. So thank you. This is very illuminating, and I'm sure people are going to get a lot of value out of that. The next thing I wanted to touch on, obviously, is motherhood, because being a mom myself and then watching you go through this process was also fun for me to be like, okay, now I get to see how she handles it, like what's going on in her
Yeah.
world. Since I started my business after becoming a mom, and it was, a huge part of my story. So I'd love for you to share what shifted for you, how that has been. And I know that somewhat hand in hand with that was the time that you took this summer away from the business on sabbatical. So I'd love for you to expand on that, because especially for the moms who are business owners, I feel like it was a good role modeling on your part, not only of doing it, but sharing it and saying, hey, I needed to do this. Because sometimes people hide, right? Especially
Yeah.
people that are in the public eye. It's like, oh, I was still here, but you never said that you were taking a break. So tell us more.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So motherhood, it has been just so incredible and so challenging at the same time. I've always believed in, and this goes back to the manifestation process, where in the beginning of my business, very early on, a lot of business owners are so afraid of hiring their first person or hiring a team to help them. And I just think that support is the key to success. Like, it really, as much as I am so independent and feel like I can do it all on my own, at the same time, it's like, why would I want to? Like, why do I need to burn myself out for so many unnecessary reasons? And I have been teaching from the beginning, like, hire before you are ready. And I just like woke up one day and just put up a little ad in my Facebook group, because I had a Facebook group in the early days of Manifestation Babe. I still do, but I was very involved in the Facebook group. And I was like, here's the price, here's your test, like anyone want to apply? And, even though the people that I hired early on, like obviously are still not, or they're not with me anymore, because it was me just throwing shit at the wall and seeing what stuck, and then realizing, oh, this is not the right fit. Oh, I see, this is the right fit. Okay. So that clarity is really powerful. But from a very early stage, I got my nervous system to get used to support and hiring people, and just knowing that I'm going to go so much further with help. And I applied that same thing with motherhood. Like, I instantly knew that even though in the very beginning stages, I don't want a night nanny, I didn't have one, I did all the nights myself. It's very exhausting for the first 8 months. And my son still couldn't sleep, after 8 months. So we ended up hiring a night nanny later on, but I early on knew that I would need a nanny. Like, I would need to have certain support structures in order to both be a mom and have my passions. And I think that, motherhood can look so different for so many people. And I just want to honor every single way that it could look for every single type of